been terrified every moment of my life, but it has never stopped me from doing what I wanted to do. I've been terrified every moment of my life, but it's never stopped me from doing what I wanted to do. That's a quote that comes from the famous artist Georgia O'Keeffe. And for today's topic, this is day 7, 10% happier self-care journey. And today's topic is accepting fear. So Joseph Goldstein is the author of this course, and he and the news anchor Dan Harris, whose course it is, the 10% happier course, they're talking about the concept of accepting fear. And what Joe Goldstein talks about is a time that he went to Hawaii, and he was there with his friends, and they're from Hawaii. And so they got to some place where they looked up and there was this huge cliff, and it was like, let's climb the cliff. So and Joe Goldstein was pretty much like, hell to the no. He wasn't trying to climb the cliff. It was, like he said, he was very fearful of it. But he decided to go forward anyway, and he climbed this cliff. He said the whole time, he was definitely fearful. He definitely had fear the entire time. He just didn't allow the fear to debilitate him. He kept going forward anyway. So that's what today's topic is about, accepting fear. I put up a quote that I kind of came to my mind, when sitting down writing the notes for this topic. And that original quote that I wrote was something to the extent of attaining courage, or working to attain courage, is more important than being fearless. And not only do I feel it's more important, but I also feel like it's more realistic at times. Many times, the majority of the time, I feel like it's more realistic to be able to strive for courage. It was about maybe 4 years ago, I looked up the word courage again. Somehow I was looking up the definition, and to my surprise, I realized there was an aspect of it that I wasn't familiar with. Or I had a little bit of a misconstrued definition, if you will. And what I mean by that is, I always thought that courage was being fearless. I thought that it meant the same thing as being fearless. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. I thought that courage meant being fearless. And to my surprise, I realized in that moment that it didn't mean to be fearless at all. It meant actually going forward with fear, going forward in the face of fear, being fearful, but like Georgia O'Keeffe said, not allowing it to stop you from doing what you want or what you need to do. And so ever since, courage has been one of my favorite words. So, accepting fear, that's the topic. When I remember, it makes me think back to when I was a Christian, and I remember that I never felt good about this one scripture, even though in a way it made sense, I could see why it was empowering. But I never did really wholeheartedly agree with the scripture, God has not given us the spirit of fear. And the thing about it was I thought about that a while back. I was pretty young when I had that thought, and I'm sitting with it why doesn't this resonate with me? because I understood why it resonated with so many people. Even today, I understand why it resonates with so many people. The concept of being fearless, is very empowering. But after thinking about it for some time, I kind of realized why I didn't really agree with this premise. God has not given us the spirit of fear. Fear is, this was one of the notes that I put on the note post. In fact, you'll see for today the notes that I took. Fear is an evolutionary trait that basically is steeped in the foundations of survival, right? When you're fearful, there are certain things that happen to your body. Your adrenaline increases, your heart rate increases. One little fun fact that I found out about the other day is that one of the aspects of the survival experience of fear is that if you have to poop, your body will switch to where you won't have that particular sensation, because when you're in fight or flight mode, you can't be pooping. and it's really true. Like your body will shut off that feeling, and then you literally won't have to go because you're in survival mode. So you might have to move, you might have to run, So anyway, what we really look at as humanity when it comes to fear is we just are aware of the fact that fear can be debilitating, and we are aware of the fact that, like everything has its pros and its cons. So when I would hear the scripture, God has not given us the spirit of fear, I was like, this scripture is actually looking at this concept in an unrealistic way. Now, of course, because it is us writing, it is our thoughts and projected into the direction of there being an entity that handed down these thoughts. I'll say, for the sake of argument, that's my opinion, but yeah. So, but with that, it makes sense, honestly, in my understanding of it, makes sense, because we're primitive humanity doing the best we can with the thoughts that we have, the experiences we have from day to day, trying to rationalize it, trying to figure out why bad things happen to good people, why good things happen to bad people, what happens after you die, blah, blah, blah. We're just trying to put together the pieces. But I realized that particular premise didn't look at fear realistically, because to say God has not given us a spirit of fear is to basically say that fear is a totally useless emotion. It's totally, negative. It's totally against anything that we would experience or are supposed to experience. But the truth of the matter is, the only reason why you're able to listen to the sound of my voice today, the only reason why I'm even able to speak today was partly due to fear, meaning that fear is what drives us to survive. Fear is what drives us to figure out how to survive, or to fight, or to run, or to protect ourselves. And protecting ourselves is what allowed us to be able to survive. And all species is geared toward that direction. The only species that go forward and wind up being like in our position, and as well as the rest of the species that we occupy this world with, is by the evolutionary trait of being able to fight or flight, which is induced by fear, and all of the above. So I realized that scripture does not look at that concept in an actual realistic way. In a way, what we're doing with that particular premise is we're trying to be positive and optimistic, and basically say, in a nutshell, that fear is not good when it's debilitating. But to say we have not been given the spirit of fear is just totally irrational. It's like, what world are you looking at? So anyway, the real point here is that everything has its place, and the truth of the matter is, anything that's not experienced in moderation can be harmful. That's the real truth here. So when we make statements like that, or any other statement, even if it's non-religious, and it's just about, helping ourselves to work with fear and trying to help ourselves to be fearless. What we're basically saying is, in certain instances, fear is debilitating when it doesn't need to be, or we're fearful when we don't need to be, when our life is not being threatened, or when we don't need to be in survival mode, or when it's just a simple matter of changing our thought or changing our direction, and then all is okay. That's what we're really trying to say in a nutshell. So with that, accepting fear, Georgia O'Keeffe writes that, I've been terrified every moment of my life, but it's never stopped me from doing what I wanted to do. That's courage. Courage is more realistic and attainable than being fearless. So that's the thing that we should focus on, right? And so some of the little points of reference that was in this particular course by Joseph Goldstein were things like, back to being mindful again, right? Mindfulness. Being able to before mindfulness, or the segue to mindfulness, is first acknowledging the thought, acknowledging the fear. Like first realizing, okay, this is what I'm experiencing, right? And then from there, Leslie said, I'm so scared. It's all right, Leslie, here's the steps. So we first acknowledge, which is what you just did. And then one thing they were saying is that, acknowledgement allows you to get out of your fear for a second, because it allows you to get out of your head and just be able to look at it, put the wedge in it, like I say, and step back and look at it. The second thing, which is, if you've been following my self-care journey daily, or if you're actually in this course already, then you already know the next keys to this are the other really helpful phrases, like it's okay to feel this way. Phrases like it's just a mind state. Phrases that talk about, being able to let the thoughts go, just like observe them and let them pass just naturally. By the way, this piece that you all are hearing in the background is called Contemplation, and it's from my newest project, Key Reflections. You can check it out on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you are present. I love to know your thoughts. Please drop a line. Please check it out and drop a line. I think it's perfect for like quiet time, meditation time, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, the other phrases, letting go. It's okay to feel this way. This is just a mind state. This is just temporary. These are all other thoughts that help with being able to accept fear and to be able to work with it. Breathing exercises, all of these kind of things together. And just realizing, and I think this is the logical, the rational part of me. Like, I think it's really simple. If we don't look at fear unrealistically and act like it's something that's not supposed to be real, it has no purpose. If we stop looking at it like that, then we can actually be to that first place of accepting. They say the struggle with anything is the lack of acceptance of it. That's going to be the next post that I put on Facebook. The struggle of anything is the lack of acceptance of it. And, I feel like in a lot of ways, there's a lot of things that we wouldn't be fearful of if we just first accepted that we are scared, like Leslie said. And then we could be able to work with that. Hey, Bobby, how you doing? I'm doing well, bro. Thank you for asking. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate you. Anthony Johnson, Kimberly Nicole, Vivian Smallwood. I'm waving at everybody now. Hey, Allie, my new friend from England. Fear is a thought until it happens. So I feel like that fear is definitely a thought. And I'm not so sure about the until it happens part. I guess it's just because I feel like fear is linked to the emotions that are kind of out of our grasp many times, because again, it's an evolutionary trait that kicks in. The point is to be able to know whether it's needed in the moment, in my opinion, and in my understanding. The point is to know whether it's actually needed and useful in the moment, because here's the thing. There are certain times where fear allows you to hurry up and jump out of the way before a car comes. That's not your rational mind being calm and like that's being afraid and reacting. The point is to know when that is helpful, and to be able to stop the action or either sense it coming and start to breathe and work with yourself when you feel it coming. The point is to stop it when it's in a situation where it's not helpful. In my understanding. Hey, Coco. I hope you're doing well. Leslie, Teresa Bailey. Teresa, you're one of my new favorite people. I thank you for all your daily love and support. Clinton Harrison, Leroy Greer, Barbara Lee Jackson, my cousin. Allie, it's nice to connect with you. So yeah, just a quick recap and then we're out of here. Starting from the top. The topic is accepting fear and what that means. Georgia O'Keefe says, I've been terrified every moment of my life, but it has never stopped me from doing what I wanted to do. That's called courage. Courage, in my opinion, and in my assertion, see y'all, my word of the day thing, my vocabulary is growing, y'all. Courage is more attainable and more realistic than being fearless. When I was a Christian, I never got with the idea that God has not given us a spirit of fear, because of the fact that I realized it was looking at fear in a very unrealistic manner. Fear is something that is an evolutionary trait, that is a survival quality. Is the only reason why you and I can sit here and have this FaceTime dialogue, Facebook Live dialogue today. So the point is not that we have not been given the spirit of fear or like it has no place. The point is to know how to manage it and to not allow it to make us be debilitated during the times when we need to actually be thriving. We need to actually be moving forward. We need to actually be facing what we're facing and just realizing there's no need to be afraid. Our life is not at risk. It is not a time for really fight or flight. And it'll be okay with a few breaths and maybe just a slight change of our perception. That's my refuting to God has not given us a spirit of fear. My refutation. And of course, I'm curious to know what you all think of that, because I'm very serious about that. I really think that principle and that idea is narrow-minded and short-sighted. I believe it makes sense from a general perspective of this is why it works in certain scenarios. If you're in a football huddle with Ray Lewis, and Ray Lewis is like, "Come on, y'all, we gotta go forward. God has not given us a spirit of fear. Let's go." In that case, it's more like, okay, we're just saying we're going out here and pushing forward, But on a real sense, in a very much more nuanced way, I believe that the truth is fear has a place. We just need to understand what place it has. And just like everything else, we're better able to deal with things in life when we aren't unrealistic about them or naive or act like they don't exist. We're able to deal with them in a much more healthy and better way if we acknowledge what they are and then work with them accordingly. Anything that you resist persists. So if we don't teach ourselves how to deal with fear, and we keep saying that fear is not like a real thing, we have not been given the spirit of fear, then what happens is when we're in situations where we either are fearful and there's no denial, we won't be able to say, okay, this is actually all right, this is normal. We'll say we'll be naive and jump to this place this unrealistic place, which means that it doesn't allow us to deal with it realistically. And if you don't deal with issues in a realistic way, then you can't have realistic solutions. if you don't deal with issues in a realistic way, then you can't have realistic solutions. And I believe that's why we go around in a circle. We aren't being realistic. That's all. Because we're upholding ideas that, because they were written before us, they have this strong place in our life, So anyway, the point of this is not really to rant on that. It's just to say that the acceptance of fear starts with first the acknowledgement and then the mindfulness around it. You can understand when it has its place, when you need to fight or flight. And we can also understand when there's no reason to actually fear, and that we need, or if we are fearful, to be able to have courage in the process so that it's not debilitating to us, and so that we can go forward, and in the words of the great Coco Lorraine Vera, we can thrive. So, yeah, I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for watching. That's the thought of today. Drop a line. I'm really curious. I want somebody to disagree with me. Let's chop it up, because, I know that there are many different schools of thoughts with this. And I know that the point that I refuted today is something that people hang their hats on every week. So I get it. But at any rate, I hope you have a great rest of the day. If you didn't catch the word of the day, jump back to my last video. Word of the day was circumscribe. And having fun with this journey. So thank y'all so much for joining me. And as always, be well. Oh, one last thing. If you all would like to support me, to help me to make more content like this, then check out the information that I'm going to put into the description. And all right, appreciate you. Be well.